Today is our last day on the Nile cruise, and we have a full day of activities. Early in the morning, our guide has come to pick us up from the ship, and we are in Aswan for a barge ride while observing the city from the river. Aswan is a small but significant city. Because of its location, it is often nicknamed the Gateway to Africa, and it is located in the south of Egypt, at the height of the first waterfall of the Nile. It is therefore the last stop in the Upper Egypt. This stretch of the Nile River where we are right now is very shallow and has many boulders and rocks protruding to the surface, making it a non-navigable stretch. The ancient name of Aswan was Swenet or Sand, as it appears in multiple obelisks and books of the dead. Later, it will be called Sowan, a name given by the Copts, which could be translated as strait. Being located where the first cataract of the Nile was located, it was conceived as the beginning of Egypt, the place from which the country began territorially. This made it a strategic place for trade, becoming an important commercial port where all kinds of goods were received from the south, from gold to ivory, wood, and spices. In addition to being a commercial port of great importance, Aswan also offered another very valuable asset, its quarries. From there, the blocks of stone were sent to all Egypt to build imposing buildings as important as the burial chambers of the pyramids of Giza. Granite of red, black, and grey tones were especially appreciated. If you have the opportunity when you are in Aswan, visit the unfinished obelisk in one of its quarries at the north of the city. This obelisk is about 42 meters long, which was to be the largest ever erected, and is believed to be placed in Karnak. Surely, while working on it, detected a flaw or cracked while trying to extract it from the original rock, so it had to be discarded. In this visit, you will be able to see how the stone was worked and what techniques were used to make the different constructions in antiquity. During the 19th century, with the emergence of Egyptology and Egyptomania, Aswan was placed in the sights of wealthy Europeans who came to this place as a winter retreat. That's why you can see buildings with a Victorian and French air in the city. We are now heading to the Philae Temple, which is about 10 kilometers to the south. It was originally built on the island Philae, but with the construction of the dam, it was completely submerged. With the help of UNESCO, and just as happened with Arbusin Bell, it was dismantled, moved, and rebuilt on the neighboring island of Agilkia, which can only be accessed by boat that leave continuously from this port and from the port of the island. Even later, the landscape of Agilkia was modified to resemble the sacred island of Isis. This temple is recognized as one of the most beautiful and probably the last great architectural work of ancient Egypt. This is one of the most important temples preserved in Egypt of those dedicated to the cult of the goddess Isis, the goddess of love, magic, and motherhood. According to the legend, when King Osiris was killed by his brother, His body was scattered throughout the country. His wife Isis collected them and took refuge on the island of Philae to rebuild it. On the island, we find a monumental complex in which the main temple is dedicated to Isis and occupies the central position. The other temples, Oran and Sufis, divinity of the Nubian culture, Imhotep, Augustus, or Hathor, are subordinate to that of the goddess. We also find the kiosk of Trajan, an Egyptian temple built by the Roman Emperor Trajan, which is not large, but is one of the most elegant and best preserved, combining columns and pillars. Its reliefs show the emperor in offering attitude towards the local gods Isis, Osiris, and Horus. This temple was the center of worship of the goddess Isis during the Ptolemaic dynasty. This area was one of the last remaining places where the ancient religion of Egypt was practiced after the spread of Christianity. Eventually, the early Christians transformed the main hypostyle hall into a chapel and defaced the pagan reliefs. This is the reason for the present appearance of some of the images of the ancient gods, as these Christians often try to remove the pagan images from their places of worship. From Justinian I until the 12th century, the temple functioned for a time as a Christian church in honor of Saint Stephen. With the arrival of Islam in Egypt, the temple was abandoned until its modern restoration for tourism. In addition, we see a Mamisi dedicated to Horus, some of Isis and Osiris, the Chapel of Mandulis, another local divinity of Nubian cult, the Roman Gate, and a nilometer. In the video of the Temple of Edfu, I told you what they used the nilometer for. Philae is preserved the last document inscription in hieroglyphic writing. It is here on the door of Hadrian and is an invocation to the god Mandulis. It was in 304 AD when the Demotic script was already predominant in the region. In this part of the country, we noticed that the vendors at bazaar stalls are not as aggressive as in the north. This was a welcome relief as they can be quite overwhelming.